and they are able to realize incomes to sustain their production. On the issue of the government subsidies, we have been able to support multiplication of open pollinated varieties, be they of sorghum, millets, teff, which is one of the crops in those particular areas of northern Kenya, which is drought tolerant. And we have been able to supply the government, the county government, if they require one of the traditional food source, which is teff. It's a specialty in Ethiopia and Marsabit and the surrounding counties. And they have been able to generate revenue from the sales to either the non-governmental organizations working in those areas or the county government. That way they are able to realize incomes which they can plow back to expand the area and the traditional or indigenous crops. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Julius, because I think you're doing some commendable job. And I'm curious to know, what are some of the bottlenecks that you have encountered and how are you able to circumvent these bottlenecks?
Thank you. In Marsabit, we have had several challenges. We have the issue of acceptability of the indigenous foods. We know in early years, people used to grow cassava, they used to grow sweet potatoes, but as modernization came in, the issue of preferences changed. And therefore, it takes a lot of struggle to get people to produce some of the indigenous crops that used to be there, but they were phased out as modernization came in. The other aspect is the challenge of marketing in Marsabit. The nearest consumption areas are far off. We are talking of distances from Marsabit to where you have large markets like Meru, like Isiru and Nairobi, is a distance of more than 200 kilometers away. So the transport costs also have an impact on how much can you produce and how can you make business sense out of it. The other issue is access to planting materials. Largely, we rely on government institutions, be it CARO or other seed merchants who are in the country. And sometimes the private sector is unable to rise to the demand of traditional or indigenous crop seeds for us. So you find maybe there could be that will to produce indigenous crops, but the planting material becomes a challenge. The other aspect is on consumption. We said that largely our population, they are biased towards wheat and rice products, and this affects the local markets of the indigenous crops. But slowly through the county government and through other national programs, people are slowly catching up to use the traditional vegetables and the traditional indigenous crops like sorghum, like millets, as we train them to change their diets, and also as we train them on the value of using traditional food crops to address some of the challenges that are delivering the community. There are other challenges that are related to financing. Marsabit is a first county. I think land-wise, it is one of the largest county in Kenya with 70,000 square kilometers. So the issue of service delivery, both for private sector and for the public sector, is actually a very expensive process. So the reach in terms of services and in terms of engagement with the communities sometimes presents a large challenge.
Thank you very much. I think this also presents business opportunities, because when you think about markets being far off, how can the private sector, and that is why it's important for us to start with the county government today, so that when we are having the conversation with the private sector, we also try and solve some of these challenges they are experiencing. Moving on to Mr. Elfas. Uasin Gishu is such a beautiful county. I was there. Oh, Taita Taveta. Oh, sorry. Yours is Taita Taveta. That is Mr. Stephen. So tell us, how is Taita Taveta innovating and ensuring that there is more production, marketing, and consumption of the indigenous foods, and financing as well?
Okay, thank you very much for allowing us to participate in this dialogue. For beginners, Taita Taveta, for those who do not know the background of Taita Taveta, it is one county that is occupied 62% by Tsavo National Park, then some 24% by ranches. So the area left for arable farming is around 14%, where 3% is rocks and a few lakes, so only around 11% is left for farming, and a population of 340,000 people. When it comes to terrain, of course, you know, we have the lowlands and the highlands, meaning that on matters indigenous vegetables or indigenous foods, the foods for the lowlands are perfectly different in terms of production, and the ones for highlands are different because of the zonations. What I can say is Taita Taveta as a county have accepted indigenous crops as part of their diets. We don't have any complication in that. Since time immemorial, the population has been taking the indigenous foods as part of their diets. When it comes to mechanisms for ensuring production of these foods, of course, our normal extension service, using partners and other research institutions that have been coming to do research and promoting these indigenous foods, have really done a good job in ensuring that this message penetrates deep into the villages, including those some